lost a couple days. So Friday morning, my car broke down and I was unable to take my daughter to camp, and spent the whole day dealing with fixing my car and getting her to camp and back and so on. And then Saturday just was crazy. And so now I am down to my last day before going back to work. So, didn't have as much time as I had hoped during the week. But what are you going to do? Nothing I can do about it. So here's where I'm at. Trying to figure out some kind of like scaling down my goals to figure out what I can do today. I do have most of today to work. I'm going to try and get at least 1 or 2 sessions in right now. So where I'm at is I've kind of manually added some extra tracks to my example. So now when I run this, I'll just go ahead and open it again. I have this set up so first I've added a rotation track to the red square, and then I've added a blue square that has a bounce easing animation. So that gives me a total of 3 tracks. I kind of like the way that animation works. It looks like he's kind of the red one's coming in and kind of just hitting and then bouncing off in another direction. I kind of like that. Ideally, I would also have it stretch and squash a little bit. That would just be another track down here. But I haven't gotten that far. But to do that, all I did is I added some code. So I'm still hard coding the animations as code right now, and I can visually see the information, but I can't do anything with it. I can't create new keyframes or anything programmatically yet. I just have the proof of concept working. So what I'd like to do by the end of the day, if it's at all possible, first is to so also I'm explicitly saying the red square, expect something to be named square, and then the first track is going to be its location, and the second track is going to be its rotation, and the third track is going to be something called a blue square and its location, right? So that's not really useful. I need to externalize this. I want this to be first of all something that is generic and the list of tracks can tell me what the objects are, and then I can fetch those objects and tell what property that's going to happen. The names of the tracks, it's not actually obvious what how to map a name like this to a what am I trying to say? To the method that allows it to move, right? For example, position actually goes to a method called relocate. Rotation actually needs to go to create a transformation builder, so then tell it to rotate by and then apply that builder. So I need to make some kind of handler for these. I need to make some kind of like abstraction for these so that I can say if the name is dot position, if the name is dot rotation, if the name is dot something, then it maps to this particular kind of builder or controller for that attribute. So that's one thing. So I need to make this generic by adding those types, the types for the different kinds of tracks, and then I need to add. Well, I want to be able to save. I want to be able to regenerate this, so actually make this something that you can load from JSON and then dump from JSON. Dump to JSON. Or possibly ston. So there's a thing called ston. And I'm thinking that is the Smalltalk object notation. And I wonder if it would allow me to use things like ats and positions and whatnot, rather than trying to find some way to encode that in JSON, right? You just put the X and the Y, or do you how do you encode a point in JSON, right? So I don't really care how it's connected, but I want how it looks. But that's what I'm shooting for. So stream pretty. Maybe ston actually isn't. Smalltalk object notation, right? So I think we can say ston writer, and then write list, write object, write float, write fraction, association. Is there a point? They don't seem to have a special thing for points. Maybe they do. I don't know. Let's see. So let's make one of these. I don't want to get too off track here, but I do want to kind of explore a little bit the notion of ston writer, write object, ston writer new, write object, and then 2 at 3. And we inspect that. Next put at extent was sent to null, so we probably have to give it some kind of string to write on. So methods, is there something called on? Yeah, so on new on string new write stream. And there we go. We got a ston writer. And then get write object as, well, how about we just say so S is going to be the stream on S, and then we write the object on S, write object, and then what is S? And so we actually get a number that says point. Okay, so the actual contents of the string are point X and Y. And that's how it's going to write it. I'm okay with that. I don't care what it looks like as long as I can externalize it. Okay. So probably what we want to do is save the keyframes of every track and possibly group them by object, or maybe not. I don't know. Okay, so we'll call this ston writer spike. And I like using this because this is already an object notation for Smalltalk. I'm okay with this. We can always change it. We can always come up with a custom format later and migrate by reading with the ston reader and then writing with the new thing, right? If it should come to that. Okay, so one other thing I did here is I haven't really added this to the code yet, but I just added, so I get a reference to that red square and I just add a basic pull handler to it. So that clicking that button is what does it. These 2 lines of code do that. And now I'm able to move that around. And then even as I'm playing the animation, I'm able to move that around. And then I can retrieve the position. I can just hit Control P here to print that. And wherever it is there, if I hit it again, I can get that information. And I think that the goal here would be to add some little button that says add a keyframe. And then that would give me, if everything in the scene were pullable, meaning I can move it around like this. So I can do the same thing to the blue square, right? So self, I call it blue. Print that, and if I say blue, add event handler, same thing, right? Then now I can move either of them, and then when I click on it, or rather when I drag to a keyframe, they just go back to where they should be. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, right. One of them is just slid down. I guess if I had one more wish list item, it would be to make that zoomable. So because if I'm demoing on the screen every day and you can't see the thing, it would be nice if that would auto zoom. So auto zoom content in scene. I have a little Kindle here I'm writing on. Okay, probably I should put it on the screen here, but whatever. Especially since it keeps turning off while I'm talking. Yeah, so doesn't matter. It's just notes for myself. I should definitely probably put them on the screen here. Okay. In fact, let me just update my to-do list here real quick. So I believe I have and then one other thing, I was looking at color pickers, just for like other things. So there is no color picker. What they did for the GT Diagrammer, which is a kind of defunct tool, is they just made a bunch of colors and you could click on them, and then that would set a color somewhere. So I think that's a reasonable thing to do. The old drawing system had this nice little morphic tool, and I think there's some some value to that. It's really just making a gradient from, by making a ramp from a particular color to another particular color. And I think I can actually do that in Glamorous Toolkit in Brick. So you can set a background to a gradient, and I guess if you can make a gradient that is filtering on hue, is making a gradient on the hue rather than the red or green or blue or whatever, then I think that would suffice to do what I want. And if not, I can just do that manually. Just pick a color using the HAS hue saturation, or rather HSV, right? A is the thing that's being collected on. Anyway. Oh yeah, it's actually making multiple little points in there. So that's actually a handy way to make a gradient fill style. And then you would just have to somehow connect that to the thing. So I think I'm probably going to do that because there is not a color. This is the only color picker I have. I do have some palettes that I want to use, but I'm not going to worry about this too much right now. So, all right. Then the last thing I want to do. So I'm trying to figure out, like, I'd hope to spend 80 hours on this or 60 hours on this week, but that's just not going to happen. You can't. I got to spend time with my daughter instead, but that was a choice I made, and I'm very happy with that choice. But it does mean that I had less time than I anticipated for this. So, I got to kind of scale back my notion of what I want. I definitely wanted to have. I know I'm kind of rambling, and maybe I should stop rambling. But I kind of wanted to have this kind of like inspector on the left-hand side, or rather a list of items in the tree, list of nodes. You can click on them, rename them, and then an inspector. And I'm trying to scale that back down. And I'm trying to think, what can I do without like a full drawing tool? And my thought is, well, I do want to make this animation. I want to make something where I've got a Mondrian graph here. So I did a video earlier some time ago called the Drawing a Path Map. This is a data structure where you have an array, and the position in the array indicates, correlates to a position in a tree. It's also called an Onentafel for reasons that I think are terrible. And so the video I want to make is about why I think you should not call this an Onentafel. And anyway, so the idea would be that you would drag these, or rather, what I want to animate is these things moving up here. So I'd like to see this come up above these two, and then all three of them move up like in unison. And then that would require, at the very least, this one is going to be above these, and then the spacing between these is going to change as you move them above these, because now you've introduced one whole space. So like you've got you've got half of a box here and half of a box here. So you've introduced an entire box in between them. And then if I do the next level, which I would like to, it just to be very confusing with the current layout here. Actually, I switched these around. Then there would be presumably three. Well, yeah, so there'd be presumably three spaces here, and then there would be, one space between each of these, and then no spaces between any of the others, and you would see that growing. So what I need to do is I need as a way to move two objects at once. So I need a group on this. I need a layout object that I can drag, like an element that is a layout that I can drag, so I can have one layout per row centered on a single line and then spaced out at different intervals. So introduce some number of pixels in between each square, and then have it centered on one thing. I think I can do that in Block. I'm not yet sure how to handle the fact that I also want to draw these lines. So that's something I'm not sure I can do. But I think that I can do that much with the tools that I have now, like with the animation tools that I have now. That's the goal. I want to make that animation, and I want to make this. The three animations I want to make. So one is this animation. This is by far the hardest. Second animation I want to make is, well, actually this might be the hardest as well, or this might be pretty hard as well, is the bouncing ball animation. So that one is just, it's what I have, but I'd like to extend it to, to do the squashing and stretching. And so I guess maybe that's turning out to not be so hard, especially if I can rotate it, and maybe I just use maybe I use a rounded rectangle if I can get that working, and maybe make it look a little bit like a circle and then have it bounce, and then maybe that'll actually look nice. I don't know. We'll see. But so that's animation number 2, which is also very complex. And then I have a third animation, which is probably not complex. This is actually the first animation I ever did in Godot. And I had actually done it in Blender as well, so it's kind of like the hello world of examples of things. This is a scene transition I do in my videos, so maybe it's a little hard to tell, but there's a gray square here, and that gray square kind of moves down, moves down, and then it expands out to be like a line of text, and then that text, is a string that is just sitting there. It's there it's in that exact spot the whole time, but it has a property saying how far apart, or how many letters do you want to actually print out. So that should be really easy to make into an animation, and I should be able to make a track for that fairly simply. And so if I can replace this, like this is probably the extent of the kind of animations I've done in Godot. I mean, I've done more advanced things than this, but I don't think I've used more features than this, if that makes any sense. Maybe a few, maybe nested animations and things like that. But if I can do this, that will tell me I'm well on my way to using the minimal level of animation that I'm used to. And if I can do this, that tells me that I can get the kind of traditional animation with like springiness and liveliness and juice. There's a great video called Juice It or Lose It, I think, and it's all about making your user interfaces and animations, springy and lifelike, and that's kind of the style I want for my videos. And if I can get this, then that tells me that I actually have gained something by making the switch from Godot, or the partial switch from Godot to this, which is that I've gained the ability to do these layouts. And hopefully then in the future I can start adding all these visual drawing tools where I actually create the nodes and whatnot directly on a canvas with a drawing tool rather than writing it through code, because that would be ideal for me. If I could record the drawings that I'm making, and again, these are not like pictures, these are diagrams. So if I can record creating a node at keyframe 7 and then putting this text in there and have a diagram that kind of appears and builds up over time, that would be ideal for me. That would be absolutely ideal if I could record the creation of a diagram, and have that diagram move around and expand over time as I elaborate on things, because that is what I'm working towards. That is the thing that I do not have anywhere else, and the thing that I want a diagram tool that allows me to draw diagrams incrementally as animations. That's one. And then two is to be able to draw data structures, to generate a data structure and generate a diagram for that data structure. So Mondrian gives me that. And if I can integrate the tool things, the scene drawing tools that I've already been working on, then I think that I'm there, right? And if in the meantime, if for the time being I have to write code to make part of that happen, I'm fine with that. But I will see that as a crutch that I'm slowly moving towards replacing with visual design elements over time. And I don't know how long that's going to take, but I want to make animations with this, not spend months building a tool, right? I want to start using it and get feedback on it from myself, right? From actually using it. All right, so that's enough talking. I've been talking forever now. That's what 25 minutes, as I've already spent 30 minutes of my sprint time here. So let's get to it. The number one thing has got to be the tracks. We have so this is the bouncing square. I've added 2 tracks to that thing, that one square, the red square, and then we've added 2 moving squares. We've added a second track. So add scene child, make blue square as blue square, and then add a second track for that. So I've got 2 tracks that are tied to one object and 1 track that is tied to another object. The only change I made to this code at all was I moved this black line to the back of the scene, because when I was playing around with this snippet here, this is not part of the code. This is just a snippet I've run in live. When I did this, I was unable to make this work because this rectangle was in the way. This black rectangle here, even though it's clear, it was intercepting the mouse events. But once I did this, I just swapped the order of 2 lines, and then the Z order changed. I think you can explicitly state the Z order, but in any case, that's what I did to make it happen was to swap the order. Okay, and that's the only change I've made to the code, other than the example code here. Okay, so and this line, so this has been changed, right? This was trash to begin with, right? This is what I've been needing to replace to begin with, and this just demonstrates why, because these tracks are not going to be there in the next animation. So so I need to loop through all the tracks and find the connected objects. So timeline view model is what I get there. But what timeline view model gives me track data. And the keys are well, did not understand associations of track data. So if I get the first one, I have the element name and the property name. And I wonder where do I stick that? And we also have, if I just look at the timeline model, I have a method called values for frame. And it's being called in exactly one place, which is right here. All right, so let's actually add a so we called it timeline. I think that values for frame. Did not understand a view model. Violating encapsulation here and getting some information. Okay, so all I'm getting right now is the raw data. And I think values for frame needs to be I kind of think what I want is well, so again, the issue is that I've got different kinds of tracks, right? View model values. What if I say here? What do I get? Oops, not values. Does not understand values. View model track data values. That should give me a track model, and each one of them has an element name, a property name, and a keyframe. Okay. So I think track data okay, so timeline view model. No, I can't. Okay. I think what I want is to get this, the view model, and I want to add a method on this that says track keys, maybe? Not just track names. And I'm thinking what it will return is a list of blocks. So one block per track, and those blocks will take 2 arguments. And the first argument will be the actual scene object. Right? So well, actually what I want to return is like, I want to return like name. So in this case, it would be like, let's make a new thing. So I want to return, in this particular case, I want to say square, and then a block. Well, it could be a block, or it could be an object, right? It could be an object that represents the. But let's say it's square. So then it would be L, like take an element, and it would take a value. And then in this case, it would say L, so it would be this line, right? So first the animator would pass in this as the element, so red, and then it would say L, the next line, relocate val, right? And then that's item 1 is that pair. So then we have a list of these pairs, and it would be square again, and it would be L. We just call them E and V, right? Oh, we'll call them L and V. L and V. L and V. And relocate V, and it would be L. Relocate because E by itself tells me it's an event. EL would represent an element. Transform, rotate by, and then V, and then apply. So it'd be this line right here, right? And then the last one would be blue square. And then L, V, L, same thing, relocate. Right, and then if we had, if I had the text, you know, the text demo here, that's coming down, then the text length would be something. So it would be, you know, what do I call this over here? This is called scene title. This is a, you know, I'll maybe make this a separate thing. So scene title. This is stripe, position, and size, right? So stripe, relocate, and then stripe size. Okay, so we'd have stripe. So really, this is the. Now I can get this. How do I get this right now? Let me get some of this. So let's say TL is this from the timeline. We can get this. And then so print that. That's the GS timeline. And from the timeline, we can say track data values collect, and then for each so view model track data values collect. We need to clean up this encapsulation issue here, but collect, and then for X, it would be X. Well, first of all, that's going to give me the list, right, of X, right? That'll give me the track model, and then we want to say for each one of those, we say that so X property name and element name. Okay, actually, the element name comes first, and it would be X element name and X property name. Boom, boom. Did not understand element name. Here's track model, element name, property name, meta. These are not closed. So let's go ahead and add a accessor for that and an accessor for that. I'm okay if they're writable. And now this should run. Square position, square rotations, blue square position. Okay. So we almost have this. This is an array. This is the exact structure, except the position is replaced with this. And what do? So I really want a map of like really this could be like they could be objects, but I don't know that I need them to be objects, right? So dictionary new ordered so setters equals dictionary new setters at position put, and then that would be this thing, right? I'll leave that there for a second. You can do that. Why not, right? Yeah. And then so if I say setters, we just do it like this, right? And then we say yourself at the end. So if I do this and I hit Control G on that, all right, so we have a position. All right. At what's the next one down here? Rotation. And that's actually it for those guys. And then at text length, text length. Put, oops. Text length, put, I'll go ahead and put it on. Text length, put, well, I actually don't know what that would look like, but so we say T is equal to BL element new. It couldn't just be this. It couldn't just be that, because you need someplace to store the complete text and the visual text, right? Like what's shown. But you can have user data, right? So new user data. I'm gonna say data. So browse BL element. Let's open this up and see what accesses user data. Maybe there's something. If I click browse references, we can see user data. So there's no like wrapper for that. You might think there would be one, but okay. So I'm actually really surprised there isn't one. But I'm gonna make this a to-do. But I think this is actually easy. New user data BL new. So T user data at text, but at, how about full text, put hello, and then T user data at full text, right? T user data at full text. If I run this, I'll get that full string, hello. And then what can I do on a string? I want to truncate it, or just take the first n items, right? Starting at No, not find substring. String is browse it. Finding, searching, converting, comparing, accessing, enumerating, maybe. Finding and searching. Find, no. Private, split, join. System primitives. arg, streaming, testing, conventions, copying. Copy up to substring. It's an array collection, so array collection probably gives you a subarray, right? Sensible collection, all but first. That's close. Copy up to, oh, self first. Okay, so first is, that's the first n elements. Okay, so I should be able to say first, 0 or whatever, first 5. Say, if I say first 0, oops, first 0, I should get first 0. Right, and then you have to wrap that, and you should get the empty string. And the string is empty, yeah. And then if you say first 1, and yeah, first 2. Okay, so now that number can be added to a thing. So BL, how about we say BL text element new. And then the text is as rope text, right? And then we say T text first, a lot of first 2 as roped text. I believe that should be working. I don't know why it's not. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then I don't know how to make it big and bold and all that stuff. That's a question for a different day, right? And then this right here would be put hello and then to user data at full text first as rope text. This would have to be a discrete. So this would not have interpolation in it. So setters at text. Somehow I copied that twice. And I actually don't want both lines. I want this, something like this, blah, blah, blah. All right, so we'll call this notes. I'm done with this for now. Like, to me, that's enough to show that I can do this. So notes for animated typing. For animated typing, animated scene, title, typing widget. Typing animation. Okay. All right, so I'll move that down to the bottom here, way down to the very end. And maybe since this is add a let me make this the. All right, so that can come later. But the point is we have setters and we have these kinds of callbacks. Now we're going to take. All right, so let's break this. Setters is a thing now, right? Boom, we have these two animations. Those are the only two we need for this particular animation. Boom, here we have this array square position. All right, so let's say the animator is GSA is the GS animator is two moving squares, and then we'll say GSA. Oops, that was weird. GSA, I guess it did typing completion. I didn't notice that. GSA timeline, view model, track data values, collect X, and then all right. So this is map the name property, the element property names to actual element and a setter. And a setter, to a closure with one argument applied. All right, so if I take that two moving, no, this one is I just want to animate that, and then if I just come in here, make a new little area, and I say GSA, how do I get the scene child? Ask for the scene. Let's say GSA scene child named square, right? Oops. Okay. So GSA time. So now, so the square is this. So square is this, and then setters at position. Setters at position, a value, and we'll pass that in, right? We'll break it in. Okay, so value is we'll just call that L, right? For element, right? And then so now move square should be position, right? Should be the position, should be this. And the element is already applied, so we give it one value, right? So I'm just going to hit Control P to do that. Whoops. This block accepts two arguments, but it was called one argument. Okay. I thought I was picturing. So the argument is value, or the method is value that you would call on this thing. And I was picturing it was, sorry, value. So move square, right? So right, move is this, right? Move is this thing, and you cannot curry it, right? Can you? Right, so let's do this. Print this. Actually, let's inspect this. Cull is when you want to run it without passing something in, but if you just want to pass the value in, I guess you can't do that. I guess you can't partially apply. Okay, so if you can't partially apply, then what you do is you make a new closure, right? So then move square is setters at I really want this to be moved, right? I don't want to run this every time. This should not change. So we need to close over a variable that is already has that value in it. And then move is, so move squares is move value L. So close over both of those two things. And then XY, right? Value XY. All right, so move square. And then if we say, so run this, I run this and then run this without inspecting it so that this animator is live. And then if we say move square value, 10 at 10, it should jump up to the top. I think was it Control D to move it? Okay. So we're not even going to give this a name, but we just need to do this. Maybe the fact that okay, so can I do this, or can I just what we can do instead is make an object for each one of those. So we would have a bunch of objects that each property adjuster, property, GS property animator, GS property adjuster, GS prop adjuster. Yeah, I like that. So GS, how about GS adjuster? GS setter, GS position setter, GS position setter on square, right? On we want to say GS position setter on, where is it? GSA child name square. I'm making this up. The GS position setter does not exist. Right? And then, so setter, so move square equals GS position setter on GS, that's that. We're going to create this, create class GS position setter. Do we want to create a generic thing they can all descend from? I think we do. GS setter is a GS setter new, right? It would just be a holder class, right? GS setter is descends from object. Oh, we want on, right? So it would have on, right? It's in game sketchlib, and the tag name is setters. And slot is target, and it will have a single method called set. Okay. And then this is a new thing, create class GS position setter. Its superclass is GS setter. It's in game sketchlib, and it's in setters. Oops. Setters. And that's it. It adds no other features except a method. All right, so GS setter Let's browse that. Or add a comment to it. I am responsible for setting a property on a single property on a specific object. I am used by GS Animator. GT class GS Animator. I am used by GS Animator to update values on each frame. Update values on objects in the scene to update values, to update the scene, with new values from the timeline at each step. There is also one other thing I need, which is the previous value, right? I also so I need some way to cache it. So I think maybe what I should do is add the previous here. Is it worth doing that? I don't know. I think I'll save that as a thing later, right? So maybe put something down here to do, maybe, because I don't know if that's actually an optimization. Like, is the if more expensive than setting the value, and then, or does it already know whether it's setting the value, whether the value needs to change or not? Should I check whether the setter is actually changing the value? Like, check whether the old and new are the same. I don't know if I should do that or not. Like, this may or may not be an optimization, and maybe it changes based on what we're setting. So I'm just going to leave it as this. Very simple. Okay, so GS setter new, GS position setter. Now browse this one. GS position setter, and the comment is, I am a GT class GS setter that sets the position on an object, on a scene element. References, browse, methods, create a new method, and we just say set a value, or really it should be a point, right? And then target relocate to a point. And if I hit the end to see the implementers of that, I said the senders of that. I want to see the implementers of that. Control M. Infinite bucket. Interesting. Okay, so that's not a common name. I always want it to be set, so we don't, because we want it to be agnostic to what the value is, coming from the track to the thing. All right, so target relocate a point. So now this is going to be so rather GS position setter. We put the class there, and then Now we say GS scene, so we say GS position setter. So setter's at position. So we say move square is going to be move is the setter at position. Move 4, because I haven't made 4 yet. So 4 is, or rather on, right? Move. There's a setter on, but move possession setter 4. So let's call this like set position. Set position. Move square equals set position. Yeah, I like on. On. Set position 4. Either way, I could go either way. So set position 4. Set position is the setter, so that's actually GS position setter. And then, all right, so let's add this. It knows what it is up here. So it's GS position setter class. And then 4, an object, and that's the name of the target, right? So GS setter, whoops. GS setter, actually, we need to move this up. Push up method. So we got to add a accessor for this, and then 4 would be on the class side, and it's going to be an object. So self new target and object, and we want to return that. Okay. I think that's it. All right, so set position for, so move square is set position for L, right? And then now we say move square, set for 2, right? Like set, is it, would it be 2? Is it always 2? Rotate 2, set, no, rotation, so yeah. So it'd be more like square position, set position for this square, right? And then square position set, and then the value would be like 55, or rather 50 at 10, right? 50 at 10, which is the line below. And if I we'll just delete that line. Square position set 50 at 10, and then if we do like 10 at 50, 10 at 50, then we can move them back and forth. So if we run this, boom. Actually, we just want this part, or even just the second line. So we do that. Now we say just setter new. We don't need this. This position setter. I don't know if I ran this. So let's actually comment this line out, because it doesn't do anything yet. Run this. We don't need this. Okay, so this, we should run this one, so we give it a name. And then now we run this. And then now if we say that, boom, it runs up here, and it comes up down here. That's it. So we have a setter object, okay? Then same thing, we need to make a rotation setter. So GS rotation setter, and we'll copy that. And so that is a new class. Create class GS rotation setter. It is a subclass of GS setter. It is in game sketch lib. It is in setters. See that one. That's interesting. Sometimes the enter key does the auto completion. Sometimes it does not. It does not add any new slots. Boom. So GS rotation setters. Let's browse that, and we add the set method. Set, and we will say set to a degrees. So a degree, degree amount, a degree value. And then we say target, transform, rotate by, and then apply. Rotate by a degree value, and then apply. And if we look at the position setter and the comment there, boom, comment, set the rotation. That's pretty obvious. That's hopefully, but then now you have the hyperlink. You can get up there to see what the, what a setter is and what it's for. Hopefully the name makes it obvious, but there you go. Okay, so now we have this. Okay. I can just delete all of this, right? I don't think I need this at all. All right, so now we have this, and so rather than element name, we're going to say collect so now I want to build something like this. So now it won't be this anymore. Instead of now, what we actually want is well, what we're going to get back is GS position setter, and square is going to be GS rotation setter. For the second one, and the third one is going to be another GS position setter. GS position setter. Okay. So that's coming, and then this will be like, you know, GS position setter, stripe, GS size or extent setter. I like size setter. And then this one would be something like GS. I wonder why it doesn't. Oh yeah, there we go. I was expecting that little wrench to show up. And then this one would be GS like text length setter. Which now is easy, right? Because now this is just the target, right? So this is target text equals target. Oops. Target text equals target user data at full text first, and then a length, right? And then now this is the GS. This would be GS text length setter set. And it goes, and it just looks like that. And again, I'll move this down here. Okay, so these are implemented. This is going to be something. This is track data GSA. All right, so GSA, the timeline itself can give me this, I think. So, we want to call this like get. All right, so this is a method on the timeline that is going to give me back these pairs, the name and the property name, and then I'm going to map them so that I have a list of objects. And I think this it would be called keys, but so just view model, track data. So the timeline, GS timeline model should do this. I think we can ask for the view model and then get the track data. So this will be a method on the model. All right, so we'll call this get track elements, or track element and property names. That's a load of stuff, but element and property names. We have track data, track names, and track element and property names. Track symbols, maybe. Yeah, symbols is track symbols. I think I can do that. Track element and property name. How about track elements and property names? Element and property names. So it's just like track names, but track element and track symbol pairs. How about track symbol pairs? Symbol pairs. The element name and the element and property name. Element name, the names of the element name and property name for each track as symbols. And then the answer is this. So, oops. I'm going to go ahead and add that so it doesn't disappear. And it's this. Come back here. What I was looking at. Yeah, I told you it would disappear. Track symbol pairs. Track. I don't like that name. Track. Symbols. There's no good name for this. But anyway, we return this. Track data values collect. Why is that? Why is that not? Oh, because we have to return it. It's mad that nothing's happening with it. So we return those. And now if we say track symbols, we should get something that we can now, we should get square and position, right? Items should be a list of associations, square and position, square rotation. And then to convert it to this is what we really want. So, and this is going to be GSA, GS animator And we'll call it something like, I don't know yet. It's not closure, it's going to be get setters. Setters for tracks. Track setters. Yes. Track symbols. So get the track symbols and then collect. Name and L. Name and prop. And we say, well, it's going to be self. It's called GSA right now, but it's called self. Right, so I should just add this as something about it not being able to, it's already added to another element. And we're going to call this, we're just going to make this a method here. So track setters. Track sounds like a verb, but it's the setters for the track. Right? Track. Yeah, okay, so return a list of setters, of GS setters, GS setter, this is return a GS setter for each track in the timeline. Bound to an object in the scene. Bound to an object and property in the scene. Bound to a specific property on an element in the scene. So if we save that, then we're going to get probably we should cache this, but for now I'm just gonna run it. We can cache it later if we find that. I'm gonna cache it. Like the whole point of doing this was to cache it. And then we also need the setters list, right? So setters. This could be a class slot or a class var. What's the difference between a var slot, a class slot, and a class var? Setters. I don't know how you set that. I don't know where you set the. Let's see, Pharaoh class setter class vars versus slots. Yeah, I really do want one place for it to be, rather than a. How do we instead of a dictionary? Maybe we make those methods. So a setter maker, setter factory. So let's get rid of this. It'll just be a. And then that way you can actually add it as extension methods on here. So, okay, so we would say something like need a new class. So GS, instead of setters at, I lost setters. It doesn't matter. Setter, GS setter, GS setter classes. Setter getter, setter maker, setter, GS setter. Kind, GS setter kind. Yeah, I say GS setter kinds is a class that stores a, yeah, so GS game sketch lib enter works. Setter enter does not work. I wish I had a button that said like clip that, right? So I could give that to. I'm gonna make a little note real quick, just so I remember to tell Think that I found that weird. Just so in the new class dialog, enter key auto completes the package does not, but enter key does not auto complete the tag and moves, and instead moves to slot. Okay, so setters, and then the slot would be what? Yeah, setter kind. These that was just, I moved there because it moved me there. Cool. Browse that, comment. I am a registry that maps symbol names, that maps property name, that maps property, that maps symbols to GT class GS setter subclasses. You can extend me by adding an extension method. Not extend me, but add new, add your own GS GT class GS timeline track types by adding an extension method to this class. Adding your own extension method, by adding your own extension methods to this class. Okay. References, methods, right? So now we add the methods, and the methods are just going to map those names. So position returns a GS position setter. Then you would say GS setter kinds setters at. So we would say GS setter kinds and we would say perform position, right? That's the weird thing. What if we said GS setter of kind position for L, right? Or GS setter for position on L. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And that way, GS setter kind. So GS setter would have rather for a slot name on an object. And then what we actually say is self, rather than that self new, we say GS setter kinds perform a slot name new, and we'll say get setter for, right? Make setter for, or rather just for, GS setter kinds for GS setter kinds setter for a slot name message is not implemented, a slot name new target and object. Okay, and then GS setter kinds, boom, B position, we will add this as setter for, setter for a slot name. And then it would be self, no, this is a class. So self perform a slot. And that way you pass in the dynamic, so you send message name as symbol. This is basically perform. Right. So now we can say this works now. Set for slot time, boom. We can return this. We want to return this. And position returns GS position setter, and these are registry, right? This should be called like registry or something. Really, all of it should be called registry. And then one more would be rotation. Rotation is GS rotation setter. And it's also in the registry. Okay. Little indirection here, but now we can say GS setter for position on L. And I believe that works, yes. GS setter for position on child name square on GS child name square. right? And then so now square position's that. Square position is this. So let's run this. Boom. There's the live thing. Run this. Oh. Get setter kinds class did not understand position. Right? Because I put them on the instance. GS setter kinds. These should be on the class. Okay. Let's close some of this junk. Anchored layout has something to do with the way that the edges talk to something. The way the Mondrian edges stick to the boxes in a particular spot. Color pickers, don't need this anymore. I mean, it's saved in Leopard. Don't need this arrow test, that's for later. Green step. Okay. This is me looking at Mondrian. I don't need that right this second anymore. Okay, so now run this. Oh, so run this. Right? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so we can move things around using this. Okay. So now, did we already collect this yet? No. Track setters. GS Animator track setters. Does that exist yet? Oops. Key not found. Key nil in. Okay. So I don't think I made that yet. Oops. Sorry. Browse that. Track setters. I did have that, but it returns nothing. Okay. So timeline. All right. So now we just move this here. So we say GSA track setters, and let's see what we get. I'm gonna say nothing because it doesn't, because it's calling this version of the method. All right, so I probably will cache it at some point, but for now we're just gonna return. We're just gonna calculate each one. So let's do name and prop. So L name and prop name, element name and prop name. Element name equals name and prop first. Prop name equals name and prop second. Now we want scene child name, so self. So self. Now we want to return a GS setter for prop name on, and then scene child name element name. Element name. And that's it. No, we don't want to return that because that'll return from the track setters. We want to collect that, right? So we're saying track symbols, and let's make that clear that we're going to collect. Collect. We don't want that because that'd be a non-local return. Okay. I believe if I run this now, we get the right thing. Position setter, a rotation setter, and a position setter. And now when we have this, let's I just want to look at GS setter. GS setter. I just want to change how it, I want to override how it prints. Print on super print on a stream, and we'll say super print on a stream, print next put and we're going to say for, and then we're going to say target name. I think that works. So if we do that again and run this, improper store into an indexable object. Target name as string. We'll say self target name. It doesn't have a name. Okay, so that's why it doesn't have a name. But it should have a name. Sorry. The target is the square. So how do I get this? Base properties, shortcuts, meta. What does child name do? Child name. My kids want me to be there. Coming in a minute, sweetie. What do I do? I want to space reference. Well, I don't know what I'm looking at, right? I need something that represents the name, right? Something that has to do with the name. Children enumeration. Properties. Child name. So what does that do? Child named. If none. So we look in here. Child with ID. Oh, so ID. Child with ID if found. Okay, so what is ID? Child ID. So ID is the thing to ask for. Okay. All right, so what is there a difference between name and ID? Child named is child with ID, a container name, a BL element name. Yeah, so named and ID are the same. This just forwards directly to child with ID. Child named, so okay, so whatever. So what we really want is the ID. All right, so that way over here somewhere. And I was saying GS setter for target ID as string. you shouldn't be able to construct one of these things that does not have an ID, so I think that's sufficient. I have too many of these things open. Right. Too many things open. Okay. So if I run this again, boom. Oh. Am I mistaken in thinking this is how you... Target ID print on. A string. Next put all, you have to say next put all. Because it's a collection. But that's only one character. Yeah, whatever. Next put, and then you put that character, right? But you would say a stream. Next put, and then a single item, single character. All right, let's try that. And again. There we go. Just and we don't need the extra thing because it's already a symbol. The extra hash mark. Okay, so now we have a position setter for square, a rotation setter for square, a position setter for the blue square, and that's what we need. So now we need to zip that. In frame changed here, we need to zip that with the... All right, so we set the... So now this is when the frame changes in the... let's bring this back up. We don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. This is all garbage now. This is garbage. This is done. So this is what we got. Right. So position setter for square, position rotation setter for square. So on. So this is kind of redundant now. And now we say track setters. The prop values are the values for frame. And then track setters. So now we want to get setters. So let's make a new prop values. Prop setters. Setter. I'm gonna call it setter stream because there's no way to do zip, right? So the zip does not exist. Zip, as in the thing that applies a function that takes 2 arguments to 2 lists and then gives you a list back, right? That does not exist in Smalltalk. What you have instead is something called a stream. So a stream is like an iterator, and so we're gonna collect on. We're gonna loop through one, and then as we loop, we're gonna take the next value of the setter. So setter stream equals self track setters as stream, right? So if I say this self as stream. Self as stream as read stream or just read stream next, and it gives me this guy, same as if I'd done that. If I say next, right? Then I get the patient setter for, yeah, that's one. So read stream. Read stream. And now I've mapped all the, I've got a list of the properties, I've got the stream of setters. And now we're going to say or really we could just say that we could just put the stream here, right? Prop values read stream. It doesn't matter which one of them is the stream, but this is more complicated to set up, so let's just get rid of this. And we don't need a name for red because that's going to go away. The stream, and we're going to say we don't need setter stream, so we're going to say self track setters read, and we're not going to say read stream. We're going to say do, and so now it's going to loop through those setters, and then for each one, we're going to say setter. We're going to say setter set, and then the prop values next. That's it. And that's the whole method. That's the animator. All that setup was so we could do this. All right, so if we run this, let's see if it still works. Perfect. It works. All right, so it's 1:30 in the afternoon here. I'm gonna make a little bit of a note. So we mostly implemented this by so let's see. Mostly we want to handle multiple tracks. We need to zip the list of property values for the current frame that comes from GT method. That would be, we want the GS timeline. A weird way that happens. Model, and then we want values for frame and with the list of the setters, with the actual setters from GT animator, GS method, GT method, GS animator, and now we want track setters. Smalltalk doesn't have a zip, but Smalltalk doesn't have a zip function, but we can just use a read stream on one of the the lists on one of the two collections. That gives us, okay, so then this is garbage, and demo. That gives us, that leads us to GS Animator frame changed, and then demo. Right. One of the collections. The actual values from the track setters. Track setters don't correspond directly to don't necessarily correspond directly to an actual setter name. For example, GT class, or how about GT method, GS rotation setter is the rotation setter set colon. Uses an intermediate. Whoa, where's my cursor even? Intermediate builder object and GS, or rather GT class, GT method, BL element position is explicitly deprecated. In favor of GT class, GT method, BL element, relocate, yeah, so position says is rather position with a colon. Is explicitly deprecated, yeah. Position is explicitly deprecated, it's relocated instead. Is explicitly deprecated in favor of relocate, which does not make for good tracking, which makes for weird tracking. Okay. Anyway, also smells like also Smalltalk doesn't actually have a zip function, but we can use a read stream, but we can instead use a read stream on one of the collections to iterate in parallel, iterate through both in parallel. That leads us to GS Animator frame changed. So the actual logic is then all of this logic is performed in GS frame, in GS Animator frame changed. The end. There's a demo. Should I check? Yeah, maybe someday, maybe. Notes. And then this is all obvious to me now. So if and when I do that, I'll just everything through that from scratch. Like I'll know that I need to make a getter because I'll be using getters on the system. Okay, so I can just delete that, delete all that. Boom. And when I actually get some text on the screen with nice fonts and everything, then I'll do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and check this in, and I think that's it. And then I'm gonna come back later, and I guess I had some other things to work on. So I've got multiple tracks. What's the next thing on my list for today, if I have time? Loading and saving from JSON, being able to actually get the key from the scene. So like a button that says, okay, I manually move it somewhere. Now can I get the location from the scene? Or even make a keyframe. So just keyframes, even if I manually change it with code to change the position or the size or anything. So yeah, so add tracks and frames. Add tracks and frames. Add tracks and keyframes. And keyframes dynamically. I don't even necessarily need the UI for that if I can do it from code, because because you can just write the code and then have a button there to run the code. Yeah, I really like this. And now everything, the keyframes, as long as the values are simple objects, then I think it's easy to store them. And I think that we just have to use StonWriter on the timeline. And so I need to be able to save and load that. Save and load as JSON or Ston. Smalltalk object notation. The immediate question is, how do I bind the file name to an application in here? But maybe I could have a Leopard snippet that actually had the Ston in there. I don't know. Then I would store everything as a Leopard page. I don't know. I think for now I'll just stick it in a file, because that's easy for me. And then as I learn more about like Leopard, maybe I could actually stick the animation in here. Or if I need to code, like, it would be. I suppose if I so I have this two moving squares. Like, if I could make this method, if I could just generate this text. That's probably what I need, right? Rather than Ston, I really want this text, right? Or something that I can, like a memento, right? That I can give to this thing. But I think, well, I was going to say, I think Ston is executable, but maybe it isn't, right? Where was that note I did on Ston? Well, you know what? I'm gonna do some research and come back in a little bit. So tune in next time for what? Maybe an inspector, but probably loading and saving as JSON and Ston, and creating keys and tracks dynamically, keyframes and text dynamically, and yeah. So we'll see. Thanks for watching. See you again a little bit later today.